May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, O Lord. I know that as we ramp up for a new year, there is a lot that we want to get done here at this congregation. And I know myself enough to be able to admit that when things get packed, when things get full, I get stressed. And when I am not stressed, I am not always my best self. And so I apologize for everybody who's had to deal with my not best self. But, no, there's no buts. That's an apology. You don't say a but for an apology. I would like to point out that the important thing of the gospel message is God will forgive us for not being our best self. What God calls us towards is a wisdom to be able to understand when we are not being our best self, to be able to rise above that when it counts, because we're not always going to be able to rise above it. We all go through times in our lives where the kids are screaming, where the phone is ringing, where the bills collectors are like, hey, you got to get to me now. And you just want to tear your hair out. That is a normal thing, and honestly, God will always forgive you for it. The struggle is to recognize it. The skill is to take a little bit of time and to ask yourself, well, what's going on? And am I following Jesus the way in which I want to? This is what Jesus called out his disciples for in this passage from Mark. Jesus informs them, I'm not going to be with you forever. And obviously that gave them a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety, having to recognize that there is going to be a time where they would have to carry the torch of Jesus' message. They would have to be the ones who bring this message of God's love into the world. Obviously, people are going to be like, well, I know this is a heavy burden, so let's just do everything my way. And that's not Jesus speaking, honestly. When we take a look at this passage from James, James speaks very clearly. Wisdom that comes from above, not wisdom that comes from below. Wisdom that comes from above is patient. It's peaceful. It's willing to yield. It asks the question, well, why am I following in the footsteps of Jesus? And I think what Jesus tells his disciples that day is, it doesn't really matter which of you comes first. It doesn't matter which of you is able to do what I do the closest. What matters is that you're following me. What matters is that you are trying to live into this message of God's love. And if you remember that, then you will not try to put yourself first among your brothers and sisters. You will try to work with your brothers and sisters. Sometimes in order to take that path of wisdom, to live into that divine wisdom, we need to be willing to tell ourselves, well, this isn't about me. Doesn't matter if I don't get my way. It'd be nice. It would be nice. But sometimes you got to let others take the lead. Sometimes you need to go in places that you do not want or feel comfortable going. And so we find ourselves in a situation within the world where we really do struggle to live into that mentality of letting others go first when they need to. We're talking in particular this week about how do we deal with this rising homelessness and poverty crisis that we're going in through, that we're that we are in the middle of here in this state. How do we be helpful stewards? How do we give in a way that helps people? And how do we respond to the fact that we're in this situation because while there are plenty of people that are helping out and trying to lift people up, there are more people who are taking and not giving people the opportunity to step up first and get what they need. We cannot address a crisis of poverty and homelessness on this level if everybody is not willing to give a little, because it is so expensive. It has gotten to a point where it is so bad. And within the homelessness community and outside of the homelessness community, we see people, instead of putting those who are vulnerable first, they work to prey on the vulnerable. there are so many instances in our lives where we listen to that voice that tells us, I should come first. I don't care about the suffering of others. I don't care about the opinions of others. And yet, we are called to a divine wisdom that compels us towards peace and understanding, that compels us to step back a little bit when others need to step forward, and to try to be a person of compassion and understanding. Honestly, we're not always going to do that all of the time, but we don't need to. We just need to take those moments in our lives where we step back and we ask ourselves, why? You see, wisdom, as James describes it to us and as Jesus puts it into perspective for his disciples, isn't knowledge. There's a lot of us within the Christian community who are looking for knowledge alone, without understanding. Just tell me what I need to do in order to be a good Christian so I don't go to hell. That's all I want to know. I don't want to read the Bible. I don't want to think about it. I just want to do what I'm supposed to do. Give me the knowledge. But what Jesus calls us towards is understanding. And this is the divine wisdom that James is speaking of. This is probably the reason why Jesus took the reins when Jesus passed on and not his disciples directly. What James calls us towards is to broaden our understanding of why we are following Jesus in the first place. What is the point? Because the point of following Jesus isn't just ourselves alone. It's to build a place, a community, where everybody has their needs fulfilled and met. It's to reach the ideal where everybody has what they want, not just what they need, but recognizing that in order to get there, we have to work together. And you know what? As I described it to you, that might not be the ideal that you're looking for. That may not be the way that you see it. But that's okay. Because honestly, which of us has the answer, right? James has this perfect way of phrasing it. I don't know. God knows. None of us knows the answer. The point is to try to work together to find it. We're not going to be able to do that if we just put ourselves first. And so we need to abandon a Christianity that says we are first. We know the answer. We can give you the knowledge. We need to embrace a Christianity that says we can work together. We can step back. We don't need all the answers. We need to find the wisdom. I think that is something that pushes against the grain of our humanity. It's something that calls us to something bigger than ourselves, something divine, type of love and compassion I wish I could always tap into, but I do not. But I am grateful to have a community that compels me to be better than myself. And I think for me that is the point. And that is the divine wisdom I hope to bring into my life.